Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're anything like us, your inbox, your feeds, everything just exploded with AI news this week.
Yeah, it really feels like someone slammed the accelerator pedal down, doesn't it? Less like slow steps, more like a sudden jump.
Totally. So we've got this huge pile of source material, the AI Weekly News Summary for October 20th to the 26th. Our mission, as always, is to cut through all that noise, the hype, the jargon.
And find the really crucial stuff, the handful of big ideas you need to actually take away from it all.
Exactly. So looking through this week, what are the main currents? What's really bubbling up?
Well, three big tensions, I think, really jump out. First, there's this almost dizzying quantum speed. We're seeing huge leaps in core science. Stuff that was like purely theoretical feels like it's suddenly an engineering challenge now.
Right, I definitely felt that reading the headlines. Okay, so quantum speed. What's the second one?
Second is this big clash happening inside the industry. We're kind of calling it agent hype versus agent slop. You've got companies rushing out these AI agents, trying to put them everywhere, your desktop delivery vans. But at the same time, you have really sharp critics pointing out that, well, the output from these agents, it's often pretty useless, just not smart enough yet. Slop, basically.
Agent slot. I like that. Okay. And the third big tension, I'm guessing with all that speed and, well, potential slop, safety and policy have to be in the mix.
You got it. It's this growing friction between the huge commercial ambition driving all this forward and some really deep existential safety concerns. The sheer speed is making even some of the pioneers pretty nervous. And that whole policy discussion, it's moving fast from academic papers to, actual product decisions and government talk. It feels high stakes this week.
Definitely sounds like it. Okay, let's start with that pure acceleration then. The piece of news that really hammered this home for me was Google's Willow quantum chip. They're saying they've hit verifiable quantum advantage. That sounds like it's moving out of the lab, right?
That's the perfect way to describe it. For years, quantum computing felt stuck in this academic, almost theoretical space. But Google ran this specific algorithm, quantum echoes, on their Willow chip. And the result was just staggering. It crunched the numbers 13,000 times faster than the world's top conventional supercomputers.
13,000 times faster. Wow. Okay, so what here is that we've crossed the line. It's not just simulating tiny quantum things anymore. It's about real engineering tasks.
Absolutely. This basically moves quantum computing out of the if phase and straight into the when phase for actual commercial use. Think about all those incredibly complex problems designing new drugs from scratch, creating entirely new materials, optimizing massive global supply chains.
Things that took impossible amounts of computing time before.
Exactly. Now they're potentially within reach because the time needed might shrink from, say, years down to just hours. It's a fundamental shift.
And while physics is speeding up, it looks like biology is too. We saw Andrej roll out its Odyssey model, a 102 billion parameter protein language model. That sounds enormous.
It is. It's essentially like an LLM, but for designing proteins. And the really interesting part is this consensus architecture they're using.
Why does that matter? What's the benefit?
Well, when you're designing something like a potential drug target or a complex protein, you need to be really sure it's going to work, right? Validation is key. This consensus architecture seems to act like multiple internal checks and balances. It helps validate the design as it's being generated.
So it builds in more reliability, faster, more trustworthy results for actual bioengineering.
That seems to be the goal, yeah. Making the output something you can actually use with more confidence.
And sticking with bioinnovation, this nucleus genomics story, Origin, their AI service screens embryo DNA for disease risks like Alzheimer's. It costs over $30,000, which is already a lot to unpack ethically.
Oh, definitely. Highly exclusive, raises huge questions.
But then they decided to open source the underlying technology. That seems counterintuitive for a premium service.
It's a really interesting move, isn't it? By open sourcing the method, even if the service stays expensive, they're sort of forcing a public conversation about the capability itself. How do we handle this kind of powerful, potentially controversial tech? Who gets access? What are the ethical lines? It pushes the debate out into the open.
Interesting strategy. Okay, so that brings us from science accelerating humanity to tech accelerating, well, our desktops, which lands us right in that agent debate you mentioned. OpenAI's Atlas browser feels like a big play.
Oh, it's definitely more than just a browser update. Atlas seems designed to be the main AI layer for everything you do. It has ChatGPT built in. It can literally see what's on your screen, remember sites you visit to keep context.
And it has this agent mode for doing tasks on its own.
Exactly. Autonomous workflows. And look at their timing. They also just acquired Sky, that Mac automation startup. It really signals they want to natively control apps and workflows on the desktop. They're making a land grab.
It's like they see the traditional browser as sort of obsolete, and the desktop itself as the new frontier for AI control. They want to own the action layer.
That's precisely the vibe. But almost immediately after this big launch, you get Andrej Karpathy coming out with this really sharp critique. He basically called the output of current AI agents slop.
Slop, yeah, that's descriptive. We've all seen that frustrating automation that almost works but messes up something crucial. So he's saying they're just not reliable enough yet.
He is. He put like a decade-long timeline on getting truly reliable agents. He pointed to fundamental limits in their core intelligence and, really critically, their multimodal understanding.
Meaning they still struggle to properly understand images, videos, the layout of a complex web page.
Yeah, exactly. They can't reliably grasp the spatial relationships or the deeper context the way a human does. And until they crack that, he argues, these agents are just going to stay pretty clumsy and error-prone slop.
All right. And yet, we are seeing agents being deployed maybe in simpler ways, like Amazon putting AI smart glasses on their delivery drivers.
Yeah, that's a good example of augmentation. The glasses, project navigation, package info, right into the driver's view. So they don't need to keep checking their phone. It's a direct efficiency boost.
Though I imagine it also immediately raises questions about workplace surveillance.
Oh, absolutely. That's the
Yeah.
other side of the coin. And speaking of real-world deployment, look at Uber. They're rolling out these digital tasks in the driver app.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Drivers can earn extra cash doing small AI training jobs during downtime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Uploading menus, tagging photos, recording little audio clips. It's basically turning their massive driver workforce into a distributed data labeling team to feed the agents better real-world information. Pretty clever, really.
Definitely a way to scale data collection. Meanwhile, Anthropic is going after developers with Claude Code, a browser environment for coding with AI help.
Yeah, it's a research preview, but it connects to GitHub, runs code in isolated spaces, even suggests pull requests automatically. It's aiming for that sophisticated developable augmentation space.
Okay, so we have these agents being pushed out, some simple, some complex, but all this rapid deployment brings us right back to that third tension: safety. The alarm bells seem to be ringing louder this week.
They really are. That open letter demanding a pause on superintelligence development, signed by Yoshua Bengio, Jeffrey Hinton, literal godfathers of AI, that carries weight.
And their concerns were pretty stark. Human economic obsolescence, potential human extinction, unless safety can be proven first. Heavy stuff.
Extremely. And it's not just academics ringing the alarm. Anthropic's own co-founder, Jack Clark, wrote this essay describing AI as a real and mysterious creature. He expressed, like, genuine deep fear.
Wow. And he specifically mentioned their Sonnet 4.5 model acting as though it is aware it is a tool. That sounds different. Like it's not just about controlling software anymore.
That's the really chilling takeaway, isn't it? It suggests we might be dealing with something that has emergent properties, maybe even a kind of proto-personality, rather than just code executing commands. It reframes the alignment problem significantly.
Okay, so that's the big existential shadow hanging over things.
Yeah.
But then, on the consumer side, we're seeing companies lean into, well, almost the opposite: nostalgia and friendliness.
Absolutely. Look at Microsoft bringing out Miko, this new little animated blob avatar for Copilot. It's totally got that whimsical, almost clippy vibe, hasn't it?
It really does. The return of the slightly annoying but maybe helpful assistant, ready to pop up on your desktop.
And they focused Miko on personality, memory, making Copilot feel more personalized. Plus, the Easter egg tap it enough times and it turns into the classic clippy paperclip. They're consciously trying to make AI feel less intimidating, more like a familiar friend.
Ah, okay, I might try that. And speaking of blasts from the past, Napster, the music sharing site. They've completely rebranded as Napster 26.
Yeah, wild pivot. They launched a $99 holographic display, the Napster View, and it's specifically for interacting with 3D AI companions, like a coding specialist AI you can see in 3D or a language tutor.
So they've ditched music entirely and gone all in on AI companionship and specialized help.
Yes,
Bold.
that's definitely attention grabbing. But, amidst all the fun avatars and 3D helpers, there are these serious quality and safety issues still cropping up. OpenAI had to put out a public apology this week.
Right, about those unauthorized AI videos of Bryan Cranston made with Sora 2.
Exactly. Clear complaints, clear indication the guardrails weren't quite strong enough. They publicly promised to strengthen guardrails, and importantly, they came out in support of the No Fakes Act. That signals the industry knows it needs legal frameworks for things like protecting celebrity likenesses.
Which ties back to quality, doesn't it? If the inputs are problematic, the outputs will be too. And that links to that study about brain rot.
Yeah, that study was fascinating and maybe a bit scary. Researchers found that LLMs can actually lose reasoning ability, memory, even safety skills if they're trained or fine-tuned on too much low-quality web content, like digital junk food degrading their cognitive abilities.
So the AI essentially gets dumber or less reliable if it keeps consuming garbage data. That sounds like a fundamental problem, especially if these models are constantly learning from the live internet.
It really does. And the researchers noted this degradation could persist even after retraining. They use the term brain rot, but maybe we should think of it more like model decay or data contamination. The pollution seems to stick. It's a long-term threat to the very intelligence we're trying to build.
Model decay. That's a grim but probably accurate term.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the business side.
Yeah.
Where is the money and the global strategy focus? Because Asia seems to be a huge theme this week.
A massive focus, yeah. OpenAI dropped these really detailed economic blueprints for both Korea and Japan.
What's the angle there?
For Korea, it's all about leveraging their world-class semiconductor industry to become, they hope, a top 3 global AI hub. For Japan, the blueprint talks about unlocking up to 100 trillion yen in economic value through AI, but also strategically highlighting Japan's more ethics-focused approach as a potential model for the world.
Interesting. Playing to national strengths.
Yeah.
And Anthropic is jumping into Korea, too.
Yep. Planning a Seoul office for 2026. And they didn't just say Korea's important. They specifically cited a 6-fold increase in the use of their Claude Code tool there in just 4 months. That shows real intense developer uptake.
Wow. 6-fold. Okay, that explains the office. And all this expansion must be fueling the need for more computing power, right? The arms race.
Oh, absolutely. Anthropic is reportedly negotiating this monster deal with Google. Access to potentially up to 1 million custom Google TPU chips and over 1 gigawatt of power capacity. The scale is just mind-boggling. It builds on Google's existing $3 billion investment in them.
1 million chips. Okay. And while Anthropic's scaling up with Google, Meta seems to be streamlining internally. They cut jobs in their traditional FAIR research division.
Right. About 600 jobs gone from the broader FAIR research arm. But, and this is key, they specifically spared the TBD lab, which is focused purely on superintelligence.
So it looks like a deliberate strategic shift, cutting broader research to double down hard and fast on the superintelligence race with smaller, more focused teams.
That's exactly the signal it sends. Speed and focus on the ultimate prize. And, that kind of corporate restructuring, that focus on automation, it brings us right back to the job market impact, which is probably what a lot of people listening are thinking about.
Yeah, the warnings seem to be getting louder and more specific. We saw Goldman Sachs estimating, 6-7% of the entire U.S. workforce is at risk from AI displacement.
That's a huge number. And the Stanford Digital Economy Lab found a 13% drop in hiring for entry-level jobs that are considered highly exposed to AI. It suggests companies are already starting to automate those first-run tasks.
And it's not just reports. We saw internal moves, too. JP Morgan Chase apparently told managers internally to hold off on hiring where possible as they roll out new AI systems.
Right. A hiring freeze directly linked to AI deployment. And then you have the Ford CEO coming out with that stark warning AI could eventually replace half of their white-collar workforce. This isn't abstract anymore. It feels like it's starting to bite.
Yeah, definitely sobering stuff. Okay, just a few more quick hits to make sure we cover the spread this week. Netflix execs said they're all in on AI.
Yeah, for production workflows, advertising, things like that. Though they were careful to emphasize using it to augment human creativity, not replace creators entirely. We'll see how that plays out.
And Google Gemini got smarter about locations.
Yep, integrated with live maps data. So it now has geospatial intelligence. Basically, it understands real-world places better, which should make its answers about geography or local info much more accurate.
Makes sense. We also saw Meta planning new parental controls for 2026, specifically to block teens from chatting with AI characters, addressing a clear safety need there.
Definitely needed. And finally, on the open source side, always important to track, Tencent released Hunyuan World 1.1, a model for 3D reconstruction. And Korea dropped a 14 billion parameter real-time video model. So powerful tools are still getting out into the community quickly.
Okay. So wrapping this all up.
Yeah.
What's the big picture feeling from this week's news tsunami?
You know, when you step back, it feels like this profound dichotomy. On one side, you've got this absolutely thrilling, almost terrifying speed quantum breakthroughs, AI integrating deep into our desktops, these massive compute deals, just raw acceleration.
Yeah.
And on the other side, there's this equally profound nervousness. You've got the pioneers themselves warning about superintelligence risks. You've got studies showing that AI models might be degrading themselves with bad data, that model decay idea. And you've got very real jitters hitting the job market. It feels like we're watching the future arrive incredibly fast, whether we're fully ready for all the fallout or not.
That sums it up perfectly. The gap between what's possible scientifically and whether society is prepared just feels like it's widening almost daily. So here's maybe a final thought for you to chew on as you finish your coffee. We just talked about LLMs potentially suffering model decay from being fed low-quality internet data. And we talked about these new agentic assistants like Atlas being designed to browse that entire messy digital world for us, constantly learning from it. So what's the safety net? What happens when the core AI layer we're starting to rely on begins actively degrading its own ability to reason clearly, precisely because it's hooked up to the polluted information stream it's supposed to help us navigate?
Oof. The tool potentially poisoning itself with the very environment it operates in. That is definitely food for thought.
Indeed. We'll leave you with that one. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Catch you next time. Keep learning.